Hi, it's Ed, and welcome to NAED's weekly election update, where, in the words of Alice in Wonderland, every week gets curiouser and curiouser. What is there to say about last week in the presidential election? Amazingly, the St. Louis debate was harder to watch than the last one, and that's really saying something. If you're like me, you just want them to move the election up a few weeks and get it over with. If you're attending the NAED Eastern Regional Conference, we'd ask you to do just that. Don't forget to get out and vote absentee before you head to Orlando. This is a funny way for me to ask you to get excited about voting, but remember, there are many races on the ballot no matter where you live. Your member of Congress is up for election. You may have a gubernatorial race. Maybe you have a U.S. Senate race. You'll have state legislative races to vote in. And I can guarantee that if you're turned off by the presidential campaign, tune into those races being decided closer to home. In some cases, the debate may not necessarily be uplifting, but it will be less personality-based and more issue-focused. It has to be, doesn't it? Every member of the U.S. House of Representatives is up for election every 2 years. So right now, Democrats need a net gain of 30 seats to win the majority from Speaker Paul P90X Ryan. Last week, I nearly mentioned in my update that the Republicans' House majority was completely safe. Even though all 435 members are up for election, most of the seats in the House are not terribly competitive. That is to say, typically they're not terribly competitive. I think it's safe to say that last week changed all of that. Democrats still have a very heavy lift to take back the House. The most generous definitions really only show around 50 competitive seats. Is it realistic to think Dems could take a net gain of 30 out of 50 competitive seats? Last week, I would have told you no way. This week, who knows? There's still 4 weeks to go, and the candidate at the top of the Republican ticket says now he's unshackled and can say what he really wants to say, as if he hasn't been saying what he wants to say the whole time. Republican candidates everywhere are trembling at that proposition. No joke. What do the odds makers say? Microsoft's PredictWise, a research project compiling polling and betting data, literally doubled the Dems' chances of taking the House this week. But it doubled from 12 to 25%. So Republicans still have a 75% chance of keeping the House. But as we say, there's a month till Election Day, and anything can happen. We'll dig into the competitive House races in the next week or so to see if there's any movement in the polls. For now, let's take a quick look at how Senate races have changed in the last week. And there wasn't a ton of movement, with the frankly surprising exception of a tightening Wisconsin Senate race. The two latest polls in Wisconsin to screen for likely voters show a very tight race, with one showing Senator Ron Johnson up 5 points, and the other with challenger, former Senator Russ Feingold, up 3. It's important to note that this Loris poll showing Johnson leading is the only poll so far to show him winning. And these polls were not in the field when the latest Trump blockbuster video was released. So it'll be interesting to get another poll or two to see where the Wisconsin race really is. Everything else in the competitive Senate races remains tight, meaning turnout is critical. Polling averages in New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, Indiana, Missouri, and Nevada are all within or just outside the typical margin of error in these polls, meaning the Senate is totally up for grabs, though the coming week will tell us if Trump's travails have put the wind in Dem sails. As we do every week, we're asking you to encourage your associates to get out and vote. Can't tell your people who to vote for, but you should help them get registered, and you need to allow them time off to vote. The accommodations you have to make vary state by state. NAED can help you get your folks registered and vote. Registration deadlines also vary by state, and it may be too late for you to register. But you can get details on the deadlines and your polling places at naed.org/GOTV. You can also find messages to send your employees reminding them to vote. If you have questions, just give me a call. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting NAED.